right, folks, Jamaican Mr. Chris Derring has been named Chief Executive Officer of Cricket West Indies and officially began his tenure on February 1 this year. He zooms in from Antigua, where he now works from, to share the details of his new role. Morning, Mr. Derring, my friend. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Neville. Morning, God.
Morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Bright and sunny morning in Antigua.
Yeah. I kind of know usually what the chief executive officer in a company does, but new role, what are you asked to do here?
Well, it's the same as any other major corporation. The only difference, I suppose, is that I'm operating I'm based in a country, but the reality, it's a brand that operates globally. So, it's probably the most well-known global brand out of the Caribbean. And it's a business that is, and an industry that is based mostly outside of the Caribbean in terms of its revenue sources, etc. So my job is to lead the organization from an executive strategic perspective, setting it up to obviously achieve the objective that have been set by the West Indies, the Cricket West Indies board, and make sure that we remain relevant in this, fast changing and exponential expanding and growing industry.
Yeah. How much will your role affect or will have an effect on what happens on the field? I say that because I know you know that the ICC Championship started this morning. I think Pakistan, New Zealand playing right now as we speak. West Indies not there. How double barrel here? How disappointed are you with that? And back to the first part of the question is how much will your role affect what happens out there?
Well, as a fan of West Indies cricket, I'm obviously going to be disappointed. But as CEO, I have to focus really on the process that creates the end result, which is the team. I can't be focused on that output because the truth is the real challenges that face West Indies cricket stems from the process, the production pipeline that 50 years ago would have been adequate, but certainly for the modern world, it is certainly not adequate.
Now, you did mention just now that your role as CEO is to carry out the strategic objectives as outlined by the CWI board. And you mentioned one of them, ensuring that the Cricket West Indies brand remains relevant, right? Now, the other question I've got for you then is, what are two other big ticket items that you have to attack right away as the new CEO?
Sorry, I had a quick break there. Look, the reality is that there are so many priorities. And it's important that when we speak about cricket, the definition of cricket has changed, has evolved over the last 50 years. 50 years ago, when you said cricket, you knew exactly what product you were talking about. It's Test cricket. There's so many forms of cricket now. Some of which are very healthy, like T20, T10. Those are forms of the game that are growing exponentially, even within the Caribbean. But there is a forms of the game which are more fundamental that needs retooling. It needs, the production pipelines of those are not fit for purpose for the modern world. In fact, if I can give a plug, a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Campion, for instance, won the regional under-16 or the Jamaica under-16 competition. Now, I was passing Campion one day and I decided to take a look at the fellows. And I recognized that these guys were practicing in the same nets, the same 3 or 4 bowlers with some old cricket balls. Maybe a batsman getting 10 minutes practice. And when you think about it, those facilities and that methodology existed 50 years ago when I played for Campion. There's no elite professional sports, certainly no high-paying elite professional sportsman or woman that is created the same way as 50 years ago. And you then see why there's such a gap with us and our major competitive partners.
Yeah.
So it's looking at the entire production pipeline, both male and female. So, for instance, 50 years ago, you would not have had the kind of women's cricket leagues around the world, West Indies women's team, age group levels, and so on. So all of those production pipelines have to be put in place because the women's game is growing exponentially.
Right.
And certainly what we have, we will never have, for instance, the resources of our competitive partners. The gap, the revenue gap, commercial revenue gap with England and India, say 50 years ago, when the West Indies ruled the roost, that commercial gap was perhaps 10 or 20 million US a year. By the time I joined the West Indies Cricket Board in 1997, that commercial gap was 200 million a year. Today, the gap with India is 3 billion US a year.
Wow.
So you have that commercial and resource gap that you'll never be able to bridge because of our size. We're 6 million people and no television market per se, domestic television market. But we have a very high athletic quotient. So we have a high number of highly talented population. So we need to make sure that those young men and women are coming into our pipeline. Why is it that we are producing in Jamaica, for instance, so many highly talented, fast young ladies at class 3? I mean, our class 3 record might be the national record in 70% of the world's countries.
Right.
So you need to find a way to pull those young ladies into our production pipeline to play cricket, because we know that athletic quotient tends to play well across all sports. And similar with the men. And so I have to look at how do we bolster the production pipeline in each country and making sure each territory is strong, because that is what's going to make West Indies strong.
Absolutely. Now, you've taken on numerous leadership roles in sports before. Everyone will also recall the 2007, it was, ICC Cricket World Cup that was hosted here in the West Indies. What lessons are you pulling from those numerous experiences to bring to bear on this role as Cricket West Indies CEO?
Well, there's a reality that Cricket World Cup taught me about the Caribbean. I hope that I would have learned, the sort of diplomacy from Cricket World Cup, because that was really a daunting task to try and galvanize 9 countries with 9 competitive objectives. It was a huge challenge to get unity, simply because we were, as individual countries hosting an event, we were actually in a competitive position, in terms of wanting to get visitors to our shores versus our next country's shores, etc. So I hope I would have learned a bit more, matured a bit more in terms of diplomacy. But I also know that it taught me that we are capable. One of the, there were so many highlights of that event and so many things that were accomplished through that event that will never be heralded publicly, and we understand that. But we know what was accomplished, and the cricketing world knows what was accomplished. In fact, when we created the whole event standards manual coming out of hosting that event, the ICC adopted it as its official event standards manual. So we know we can do things at a world-class level. It's about harnessing all that, some people call it insularity, I call it that competitive energy. Us competing against each other, and that competitive spirit between Jamaica and Trinidad and Guyana. And so it is also a fuel. Yes, it has its downside, but it's a fuel that can help drive us back to the top and remaining competitive again.
Yeah.
It's the second biggest sport in the world. The revenues in it are just incredible. And it would be a shame if now that it is such a massive industry, this global brand that we created, it would be a shame if we get left behind or swamped by the waves that are coming.
Yeah, almost out of time. Final question from me. I should have asked this right at the top, Sir Chris. Why did you want to take it? There are so many problems in West Indies cricket, both on and off the field. Why did you want to throw your hat in this?
Well, there are many reasons, but I'd probably say I started to feel the fever again when Broward County asked me to help them with the hosting of their T20 World Cup. And you started to understand the new economics of the game and the new opportunities for the region. And so, yes, I have a deep love for West Indies cricket. I feel like it has helped to create me, my entire personality. We walked the world like champions for so many years because of our West Indies team. I don't want to see that die, and I see the economic opportunities. When last year or a couple of years ago, I introduced our Prime Minister, for instance, to one of the Indian billionaires that owns one of Major League Cricket franchises and so on. And, the discussions that took place between them, that had nothing to do with cricket. Yes, cricket was the platform, but the economic opportunities for the region is so mammoth that you just know that, hey, this is something that you've taught the talk. Now it's time to walk the walk.
Yeah. Thanks for speaking with us, my friend. Congratulations. God bless you as you used the word daunting. It is. But I'm confident that sooner than later we will see the benefits of what you're doing. God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for speaking with us. Yep.
That's Chris Derring. He's the CEO of Cricket West Indies. Now, after the break, we'll hear about how reggae influenced hip-hop. Stick and stay.